Underlapping runs, are they useless? Or something that people just don't understand? On today's show, I'm going to reveal a small little secret. My name is Daljit. Welcome to the show. Big news! FM21 has a launch date, November the 24th. If you are keen on getting the game for 20% off, you can always use my code at Fanatical. It's a fantastic website and you get to build bundles for about like $1 in this place. It's kind of crazy. You can like put 2 or 3 games together and pick them up for $3. I love the site. The keys are legitimate and it's also an official digital retailer for Sports Interactive.
With some of your players being a little bit older, you might want
I was looking at tempo straight away.
Preserving some energy. Well, if you're going to play gegenpress, then you kind of got to have that higher tempo.
Okay.
But when you look at distribution, for example, you're playing the ball out of defence. Do you want to focus on anything in particular? You've now got overlap and underlap as well. So if you're going to be having inside forwards, then it might be looking for underlap sometimes.
Very snazzy.
But we don't have to get too complicated.
Yeah.
I want to thank Kevin for letting me use excerpts from his video done for FM18. That was an interview with Miles Jacobson, the studio director of Sports Interactive, the makers of the game Football Manager. They had a sit down. Miles was explaining to him the changes that were being made to the tactical creator. We had all those presets, lots of new things in the game, and Kevin was lucky enough to get a chance to be coached by the makers of the game, which is fantastic. And during that process, Miles mentioned something about underlapping runs. Now, interestingly enough, most of the time when the developers talk about inserting something new, they don't really tell you every little detail. They never do. I mean, I've been involved with SI in some small way or another over the last couple of years, and they don't tell me everything as well. It's not like, oh, here you go, this is exactly how you do it, this is exactly how you set it up, and this is exactly how it works. No. They haven't never done that for me. I've had to figure things out on my own. Now, before we go any further, I want to set the expectations up. Now, everybody has something called confirmation bias, where you reinforce your pre-existing notion about something. So if you see something happening, it reinforces a confirmation, a bias that you have. So that's why it's called a confirmation bias. Now, if you truly believe that underlapping runs are broken, you will look for things in the game to reinforce that opinion. Now, I want to ask you to approach this with an open mind because it's really important. I feel that underlapping runs work brilliantly in the game. In fact, I just love underlapping runs. I use them in my tactics all the time. And, well, some people use them and other people don't notice it. So what really happens is they don't see patterns of play. And when they don't see patterns of play, they lose their matches. And I've been, hinting towards this for the last couple of weeks. And so far, very few people have picked up on it until I did a private stream and I played a couple of games with people to show them exactly what I saw. And that's when the people who were on my stream started getting excited and started going off to create their own systems which had underlapping runs inside them. And now I'm really happy to see that they are making some very interesting tactics work for them. And I want to share this with you so that you can go out there and experience it yourself. The game explains underlapping pretty clearly. It tells players on the flanks to hold on to the ball, and rather than waiting for a player to arrive from deep with an overlapping run, which is usually a run on the outside, they are meant to look for a teammate who's making a run inside and beyond them. So they're basically looking inside the pitch for any player, and this is important, any player that is making an inside run. When you read the instruction for the overlapping run, it's pretty clear. It's looking most likely for a marauding fullback or any player that's running on the outside. In order to make things easier, you'll need to learn how to separate the trees from the forest. You have to look at the whole team's movement as one whole unit. You'll be looking for how the team develops play and how they move down the pitch with the ball When they use overlapping runs, there's a tendency for the team to be concentrating their play out. Here I've used a simple tool to illustrate what an overlapping run could look like. As play develops, they go out to the flanks, and then when an opportunity presents itself, a team will either cross the ball or look at making a cutback. When you see a team using underlapping runs, the focus of the play drifts more inside as they look for runs happening inside the pitch, and this can involve any number of teammates. And this is where people get confused. The players on the flanks, they'll hold up the ball and they'll find teammates making inside runs, and they will find them with passes, crosses, or even diagonals and through balls. And this is the secret very few want to reveal. You're looking at the forest. You're looking at how a team is developing its play. With overlapping runs, more of the action goes out to the flanks. With underlapping runs, the guys on the flank are looking for the action happening inside the pitch. It's pretty easy to get confused between overlapping and underlapping runs. With overlapping runs, higher mentality on the outside encourages players to be a bit more aggressive, and they also become the receivers of a lot of passes. Here we have a pass going on the outside, and then it goes inside and then goes outside again, and this is typical of an overlapping run. Now, it might appear to some people that that was actually an underlapping run. If you look carefully here, you'll see the fullback making a run on the inside, but still this is generally classified as an overlapping run. With an overlapping run, you generally see players holding on to the ball, playing it out to players running on the outside. With an underlapping run, you will see players holding on to the ball and then playing it for other players who are running on the inside. These are the kinds of runs we want to see taken advantage of when we use underlapping runs. Notice the run the player made into the box. That's exactly the run we want to take advantage of. Generally, there seems to be some confusion. Sometimes when people see a run being made on the inside, they naturally assume it's an underlapping run, when in reality it's just a role that is being used. When it comes to the effects of mentality on overlapping and underlapping runs, it's exactly the same. It's the behavior of the players that's going to be slightly different. While fullbacks will have a higher mentality with an overlapping and an underlapping run, the players in front will still see the same effects in terms of their mentality. That mentality will be reduced. This in turn encourages the behavior that we will see with overlapping and underlapping runs. What's the difference? With an overlapping run, naturally the play is held up while the overlapping run occurs, and then the winger might play the ball onto the outside for the overlapping player. With an underlapping run, the winger might hold on to the ball. Instead, he might look for players on the inside making those kind of runs. Underlapping runs can be very, very interesting. While overlapping runs only really take advantage of one player making the overlapping run, the underlapping run can take advantage of any teammate who makes an inside run. So if the winger is holding up the ball, any player doing a run on the inside could be a player that receives the pass. This also ends up influencing the kind of football you're playing. With overlapping runs, play seems to travel outwards, whereas with underlapping runs, play seems to travel inside. With this tactic, let me show you what I mean. As I change it to overlapping run, notice how the play seems to drift out. You will notice very subtle things like how the flanks are being used more often than not. When a player holds up the ball, they look out wide. Even if the ball moves back into the middle, the playmakers in the middle will look for an opportunity to send the ball out once again for another overlapping run. With overlapping and underlapping runs, it's very important to pay attention to the general flow of the game. With overlapping runs, there is a stronger possibility that you're going to be using the fullbacks a lot more. With underlapping runs, the wingers could hold on to the ball and then look inside for a run and then give that player the ball. While the first sequence primarily showed overlapping runs, please pay attention to this next sequence where we are using underlapping runs. Note the general flow of the game and how players are holding on to the ball, waiting for a run to come on the inside. Also note how those wingbacks and all fullbacks are still making those wider runs on the outside. The interesting thing about underlapping runs is players can be holding on to the ball, looking for a teammate making the inside run. It could be the wing back holding on to the ball. It could be a winger holding on to the ball. But they're going to be looking for more options inside the box. And that is the critical takeaway here. Whereas the overlapping run can sometimes lead you into a position where the wing back just drives towards the box and because of his overlapping run ends up shooting at the net. With an underlapping run, you could easily avoid the use of low crosses. The interesting thing is how overlap and underlap actually work. Overlap encourages attacking play to basically use the flanks, right? So you are using the flanks a lot more. Whereas in the underlap instruction, you're trying to go a bit more centrally. You're trying to drive the attacks more centrally. It's a very interesting concept because you can actually take this concept and apply it to tactics where you intentionally play an overlap on one side of the pitch and an underlap on the other. It's something I did with one of my tactics. I don't know if you guys still remember this tactic. I used it for a while and then I stopped using it because I didn't want to confuse people with the tactic. But if you can you can definitely create some very interesting patterns with these kind of setups. Now that we've gotten the explanations out of the way, it's time for us to try and create a tactic using overlapping and underlapping runs. And what better way for me to be ambitious than to introduce you to a tactic I started FM20 with called Mane's Revenge, where I employed the overlap and the underlap instruction. I think some of you are familiar with the system. Essentially, what happens with this tactic is we're going to have an overlap on the left flank. So this player's mentality will be reduced, this player's mentality will be increased, but I'm looking for this overlap to happen when I start camping in the opponent's half. On the right flank, I've got an underlap employed, looking for this player's mentality to be increased and this player's mentality to be reduced. And when play develops, when we're going down the right flank, I'm expecting either one of these two players to start looking out for any number of inside runs that these players might be making, the AM, the inverted winger, or even the complete forward. Now, I could make this tactic even more underlapping friendly by turning this guy into a complete forward and support and switching this role into a trequartista. When this is done, I get more players making inside runs. I get this guy making an inside run, I'll get this player making an inside run, and now both of these players will start looking out for any number of these players who are going to be making that inside run. There are traits that actually help out. Traits like get into opposition area on any one of these players is going to help them trigger that early run that we want to see happen for these players to take advantage of. There are some roles that seem to favor these underlapping plays: the trequartista, the inverted winger, the inside forward, and even the raumdauter. These are some of my favorite roles to use when I want to exploit underlapping runs. There are other formations as well that enjoy the use of the underlapping run. Can you tell me who do I expect to see making underlapping runs in this tactic? Well, I hope I helped clear things up. Now, I'm just going to reiterate some points here. Now, when it comes to an underlapping run, there are certain formations that really excel with underlapping runs. It's brilliant to watch how these formations play. As long as you understand that there's a wider player looking for a teammate. Now, that's the difference between the wording that they use to describe the underlapping run and the overlapping run. The overlapping run says they're looking for a fullback, most likely a fullback making the run. But the wording for the underlapping run says somebody's holding the ball on the flanks looking for a teammate. It's very specific. They use the word teammate. It can be anyone. So when you're playing systems, you're looking out for these little inside runs to happen. So your tactic, if it's going to take advantage of underlapping runs, it's got many players it can aim for. So you're really looking for a system that has roles and duties that are attacking spaces in the middle. Now, naturally, if you're playing a very narrow attacking system, chances are everybody's going to be walking into each other and, it's not really going to work very well. So you've got to understand how to use width. You've got to understand how to use certain roles, which is one of the reasons why my favorite role currently, when I'm using an underlapping run, happens to be the trequartista, the raumdauter. Now, these guys, they absolutely love the space. They are space explorers, they're creators, the trequartista at least, and the raumdauter just wants to attack that space. So it's been fun. So there are certain formations that happen to enjoy this a bit more than other formations, right? you're looking at final third action, not like starting from the midfield. You're looking for somebody to be attacking the space, and sometimes you need the space to exist, because if the space doesn't exist and they build the play up, then you start seeing like crosses as well, and you go like, oh, that's not an underlapping run, that's a cross, right? So the two start to get, the water start to get a bit muddy over here. But when you see space and the player plays that pass, it's clear as daylight. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I'll try and help you out as much as I can. If you have ideas for future shows, share them too. You can always find me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm on YouTube. On Fridays, I'm on Twitch. If you have a question, you can also seek me out over there. You guys take care, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.